The Red Rag Riddle, Chapter 8. Stolen, Followed. Not everyone had been able to get a fun job like dog sitting, but they made fun out of their jobs anyway. Many students took jobs collecting cans, throwing newspapers, or even painting fences. Racer persuaded an elderly woman in his mobile home park to allow him to pull weeds in her yard, but he accidentally pulled up a row of her prized tulip bulbs instead. However, she quickly forgave him when he replanted them, and she still paid him for the fine work he did in spotting and pulling other weeds. It was already the first Saturday morning in July. The sun came up boiling hot. Up and down AC Street, people busied themselves trying to finish their yard work before it got even hotter. The heat didn't discourage AC and Racer though. They opened the lemonade stand extra early, and word spread fast that this was the place to buy a cold drink, and for a good cause too. People kept coming. The most important thing was keeping the pitchers full and the customers happy. "I'll go in and make more lemonade," Racer said. "Out of juice already?" Mrs. Virtuson asked with raised eyebrows. "Yes, ma'am. If we keep it up, Hapford's parents will have to plant another lemon tree." He quickly set the empty pitcher on the counter and poured in the squeezed juice. As he counted the cups of water, he began to think. We've been open 4 weeks. July is the middle month of summer. Only a few more weeks to operate a lemonade stand. Although they had made some profit the last 3 weeks, the computer fund wasn't growing fast enough. At least not for him. We could make more profit if we had a way to stretch the lemonade. How about less sugar and a little extra water? Not much more, just a few more cups. So he added only half as much sugar and dumped in 2 extra cups of water before stirring. What a clever idea! Won't AC be surprised when the juice lasts longer and we make almost twice as much money? He pressed the lid back on the pitcher, grabbed the handle and carried it back outside. When AC took his turn to make up fresh limeade, he followed the recipe exactly and hurried back outside just as one of the neighbours plunked his money down on the stand. "I'll take a cup of that lemonade, please." The man picked up the cup as soon as Racer filled it, turned it up and downed it in one big gulp. Ugh! He bent over coughing. "What is this?" he gasped. The boys shook their heads in surprise. "Well, something's wrong. This stuff tastes terrible. You must have picked some rotten lemons. It's really sour." Racer's eyes darted back and forth from the customer to AC. Was it my special juice? Surely not. Maybe the man had just brushed his teeth or something. While questions bounced around in Racer's brain, AC said, "I'm sorry, sir. Here, we'll be happy to exchange it." And he gave him a cup of limeade instead. He didn't want to disappoint a good customer. Satisfaction was important, or the customers wouldn't come back. Most people left right after paying for their lemonade and began drinking it as they walked back to their yards. But when some saw the first man get a new cup, they came back and asked to exchange their cups too. And before long, customers were asking only for limeade. The lemonade just sat untouched. "Racer," AC asked when no customers were at the stand, "what happened to this lemonade? Have you tasted it?" Racer looked down at the ground. AC poured a cup. As soon as he took a sip, he made a face, spit it out, and clutched his throat, choking. "It really does taste awful. What's wrong with it? It's so sour I almost strangled." "It could be because I put 2 extra cups of water and not very much sugar in the juice. I wanted to make it go farther," Racer admitted slowly. "It could be?" AC asked. "I thought we might make more money for the computer that way." Then, pausing, he looked down and mumbled, "I wasted a whole pitcher of juice, didn't I?" "Racer, I know you were trying to help, but—" "Yes, but I wasn't being honest with the customers." At that moment, the boys heard footsteps pointing towards them. They turned to see Ronnie chasing Susie. He wouldn't stop teasing her, nor would he stop chasing her. She was running very fast and her face was as red as a glowing lava from a volcano. She looked as though she might be ready to explode too. When she angrily turned to look back at him, her foot caught in a crack in the sidewalk, and she fell right into the lemonade stand. Down it went. Down went Susie. Down went the pitchers. Down went the drinks. Our lemonade stand, Racer thought, just when we were going to get ahead. Now look what you've done, Susie. Leave it to a girl to go and ruin everything, Ronnie muttered. Inside, he felt secretly glad she had knocked over the boy's stand. Nobody deserves a computer more than me, he thought. Are you all right, Susie? AC asked. No, she's not all right, Racer said, pointing to her knees. Both were scraped and beginning to bleed. He was now much more concerned for Susie than for the lemonade stand. You stay here. I'll get my mother, AC suggested, starting toward the house. Oh, great, Ronnie said. Now I'll get into trouble. Stop crying like a sissy. You didn't fall that hard. Go away, Susie cried. Just go away. Surprisingly, he didn't. Not so surprisingly, it was only because he didn't want to face Mrs. Virchuson when she found out he had caused Susie's fall. Mrs. Virchuson came outside. We'd better go wash off those knees and put a little first aid spray on your scrapes. Ow! Susie wailed as Mrs. Virchuson helped her walk slowly to the house. AC and Racer trailed behind. While all this was happening, no one was watching the lemonade stand. No one except the mysterious man who had slowly turned his dark blue car around the corner. He coasted to a stop at the end of the block and turned off the motor. Suddenly, the man saw a boy taking money out of the money box. The man lifted the camera to get a good picture, checked the lighting, focused and clicked the red button. It jammed. He tried to click it again. He examined the camera. Come on, he said under his breath, trying to force the button down. Dear me, out of film. Imagine. He threw up his hands and then glanced back up at the house. The thief was gone. Not seeing any movement inside, he scribbled a quick note, stepped out onto the sidewalk, dropped the paper into the boy's money box, and then zoomed off down the street. When Racer and AC returned to clean up what was left of their stand, Bobby Springer stood there. He gazed at the remains. Hi, he said, looking at them with a shy smile. I was passing by and thought I'd say hello. Looks like a storm blew through. He laughed nervously while shoving his hands in his pockets. Two, as a matter of fact, Racer kidded. One named Ronnie and another named Susie. You walked all the way here from the bus? I mean your house? Racer asked, changing the subject. He and Racer remembered the Springers from the yard sale. In fact, the subject of the Springer family had come up in more than one conversation at the Virchusons' home. The Virchusons wanted to make sure the Springers were better off spiritually than they were financially. Pastor Aldrich planned to stop by and see them. Nah, I didn't walk all the way here. My pop said to get some bus parts just a few blocks from here. I just walked from the store. He looked around and bit his lip. He tried to think of something else to say. There's still a little limeade that didn't run out of the pitcher. Would you like some? Racer asked. He wanted to do something nice for his new friend. Bobby felt around in his pockets. Yeah, well, no, Bobby sighed, licking his lips. He longed for just a taste. Here, have a cup of limeade for the road, free of charge. I think sales are pretty much over for today anyway, Racer said as he looked over the damage. He figured Bobby was really thirsty, but didn't have any money. Bobby drank it all in one gulp. His jaws tightened. It made his hair stand up, but he liked the tingling feeling in his throat. Well, I'd better head back to the store before my pop leaves me behind. See you round, and thanks for the drink. He left in a flash. AC opened the money box and gasped. We had a whole stack of bills in this box, but look. Racer squinted over Ace's shoulder and stared into the box that now contained only small coins. What happened? Where are they? What's this? And he snatched up a note and read it. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. Read this, he ordered. AC read it quickly. He felt hot all over. His heart pounded. His legs felt as though bubbly soda pop had replaced his blood. He shouted, "Mom!" and the boys flew back into the house. Soon 2 police cars wheeled into the driveway. One officer pulled out of each car. Neighbours pulled back curtains and peered through peepholes to see what was going on. The Virchesons' phone nearly rang off the hook, but they were told not to answer it. Though the policemen rarely had time for cases such as this, they made an exception for the Virchesons. Their good name had earned them a reputation for helping those in need. Now they had a need, and the authorities did not disappoint them. "Don't worry, Mrs. Vircheson," one of the officers said while he filed out a report. "I really am sorry to bother you, officer, but the children's money was stolen from their lemonade stand, and a mysterious note was left in the money box. The children seem to think they are being followed." "Where's the note, son?" an older officer interrupted. AC handed it to him. The officer frowned as he read it and scratched his head. The note read, "I've been watching you closely, and I know who took your money. I cannot tell just now, but you'll get it back somehow. We're concerned about catching this thief, of course, but the money's not the most important thing here. Someone is following you. See? It says so right here in this note. Do you know who or why?" The boys shook their heads. "AC, who came to the lemonade stand today? Have you noticed anyone unusual? Anything out of the ordinary?" Mrs. Vircheson asked. "Well, Ronnie spoiled the lemonade stand, but that isn't so unusual or out of the ordinary." "Maybe Ronnie took the money," said Racer. "But, Racer, Ronnie left right after Susie fell down. He didn't want to have to do any explaining." AC scratched his head and thought some more. "I don't know. There was that boy from the edge of town, Bobby Springer, but he wouldn't have taken the money. I don't think. He is very poor, though, and he was alone at the stand when we came out of the house." "Now that I think about it," noted Racer, "he did look uncomfortable." "That's because he's new around here and he doesn't know us very well. I think he was just shy," said AC, thinking twice, this time in Bobby's defence. "You still don't understand, boys. Just as important as who stole the money is who left the note." The officer questioned again. "Who is watching you?" After a long pause, the officer suggested, "Well, talk to your friends. Your mother tells me you've been spending a lot of time with them lately on this project. Maybe they'll remember something fishy." "Regardless," said the officer, "watch your step, boys. We'll be on the lookout for anything unusual." "Thank you, officer. I appreciate you coming. We'll let you know if we learn anything new," Mrs. Vircheson promised. She walked the officers to the door. "Racer, get your things. I'll take you home. I don't want you walking home by yourself. I don't think it's safe anymore." Soon phones began to buzz and ring in Highland City and neighbouring Harmony. Mr. Vircheson decided to invite all the children from both schools to meet on Tuesday evening in the Fellowship Hall at Highland School. Until then, the children searched their brains trying to think who might be watching AC and Racer, and why.